Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm going to show you how it's all connected when it comes to the nerves, the muscles, the ligaments, the connective tissue, and all of the organs that are involved with chronic pelvic, genital, and sexual pain disorders. So first, we're going to zoom in. And first, just take a moment to look at the bone structure, keeping in mind where your pain is located. We're going to turn this all the way around. Just notice where the bony parts are in the structure. Now I'm going to start to add in some muscles. Notice all of the layers. I'm just going to go all the way and add all of the muscles first, so you can see how the layers upon layers of muscles are all connected. Because sometimes we can become aware of one layer and forget all the layers that are on top. So again, thinking about where you feel that pain, noticing that the psoas muscle really infiltrates everything when it comes to pelvic and sexual pain. So let me take some layers off just to point out this big boy right here, the psoas. And I'm going to zoom out for a moment. Notice how the psoas starts up around T12, T11, T12, L1, and it comes down and it's on both sides. It's on both the left and the right. And there's a psoas major and there's a psoas minor. And this huge muscle, when it goes into spasm, you're going to feel it in the back and you can also feel it deep in the hip. It's also going to feel like a really deep pain right in the abdominal cavity. And so as I turn the body around here, we can see it in the back as well. So we would feel it right around here, which is also the base of the diaphragm. And then it goes all the way down into the hip flexors. And that's important because all the ligaments and the muscles that go into the pelvic floor and the hips can create a domino effect. If one goes into spasm, like the psoas, it can cause these other ligaments to go into spasm. And remember, all these muscles, particularly in the back, right? When they start to go into spasm, these other hip flexors and the muscles that go right into the pelvic floor, and you can see the name here on the upper left that you may have heard from your pelvic floor PT. All of these muscles and ligaments can start to go into spasm. Here are some common ones. The piriformis. You're going to feel that deep underneath the glutes as well as in the hips. Another common one is this one, the obturator internus. And when I show you just the pelvis, you're going to see how this is really infiltrated deep into the pelvic floor. So if you have female anatomy, when the obturator internus muscle is spasming, you're going to feel it both deep in the hip, and you're also going to feel that with deep penetration because of how it goes right in there, right into the deep abdominal wall, the deep cavity of the pelvis. And so deep penetration, if you feel like you hit a wall, most likely you're not hitting the cervix, you're hitting this obturator internus muscle right here. And I want to zoom out for a moment because, again, when we think about the pelvis, we can think of it just within the realm of the pelvis. But notice how the muscles of the legs and the muscles of the back also go into these deeper muscles in the pelvic region. So if any of the back of the legs are in spasm, that's going to affect the hip flexors and the hip muscles and the pelvic floor to go into spasm. If the lower back is tight, if any of these muscles are going into spasm, that can add to some of the sacral pain and the tailbone pain that you have. When one goes into spasm, the others go into spasm in an effort to support the other muscles. And when we zoom all the way out and turn the person sideways here, you can see how posture is really important. When someone has poor posture and they're bent over, the pelvic floor muscles are the ones that are doing all of the work. When they're standing up straight, the main muscles that are doing the work are the strong leg muscles and the strong back muscles, particularly these guys right here. The trapezius muscle, as well as these muscles here. And know that within the homunculus, or the sensory motor cortex of the brain, there is a high correlation between the cervical spine and the pelvic floor. There's also a connection between the pelvic floor and the feet. That's why with orgasm or with any pelvic spasm, the toes curl and the neck gets tight. So if you have any injuries in the feet and the cervical spine, that can cause tension in the pelvic floor. And if you have pelvic floor dysfunction where the pelvic floor muscles are in spasm, you most likely are also feeling tension in your neck and may feel some nerve pain and tingliness in your feet as well. So it's important when we're looking at pelvic and sexual pain that we remember that the whole body is connected. And therefore we have to look at the whole body, which physical therapists and pelvic floor physical therapists specifically are very good at helping you connect those dots. When we're looking at the pelvic floor, we also want to remember that injury in other parts of the body will be compensated for. And the pelvic floor holds the brunt of all of that. So if there's an injury to, say, the right ankle, there's going to be strain on the left knee, and therefore you're going to feel it in the right hip. And then you're going to feel it in the left side of the back, right side of the upper shoulder and neck, and left side of the head. So an injury to one foot or one leg correlates with headaches on each side of the head. It's all connected. You'll hear me say that a lot. Now let's take a look at some of the organic triggers. So spasms in different parts of the body can be a trigger. Injuries in part of the body can be a trigger for the pelvic floor to go into spasm. But the organs are also a main trigger, particularly the digestive system and the urogenital system. So when we look at the pelvis, we have to remember that any of these organs can place any of these muscles into spasm. So if you have GI dysfunction or constipation, when there's constipation, you can feel gas and bloated anywhere in the abdominal cavity. Particularly with the direction of the colon, you can feel spasms in either one of the hips and often the lower back because of the location of the psoas muscle. And as stool flows up the right, over to the left, and down the left, when a big stool is passing, we can feel, again, these spasms deep in the hip flexors because of the locations of the muscles in reference to the location of the colon. Let's take a moment to look up here. Here's where the diaphragm is. And so we can see that in order for the diaphragm to expand out and to expand down, if any of these muscles or any of these organs are feeling tight, tense, crowded, bloated, that's going to limit the movement of the diaphragm. And when we're not taking deep breaths, that in and of itself can create a spasm in the psoas muscle, which again has that domino effect all the way down into the hips. Let's take another look. When we look just at the pelvis, this is when we can look at where the bladder comes into play. So here we have the bladder, and it's right next to the colon for males. And let's switch over to the female. With the female, the vagina and the uterus are right next to the colon. So therefore, any constipation or diarrhea, any inflammation in this area is going to agitate any endometriosis, cysts, fibroids, or painful periods that have sensitized all of these organs and nerves that are in the area. And because of something called crosstalk, if there's agitation in any of these organs, it can create agitation and sensitivity in the other. So when we have interstitial cystitis or bladder infections, that's going to sensitize the nerves around the uterus and the vagina and the vaginal wall. You can kind of get a look from this direction. And any agitation in the vaginal cavity. And that could be due from friction, that could be from hormone fluctuations that are causing the vagina to have a thinner lining or higher sensitivity or sense of dryness. All of that can be agitated by any inflammation that's around the bladder and around the lower colon. It's like noisy neighbors, right? If this neighbor is right next door to this neighbor, if this one's playing loud music, that's going to agitate this neighbor and probably even this one. And that's what we see with pelvic pain. The organs are the main triggers of the muscles that spasm around it and the nerves that infiltrate this whole area. Let's take a moment to zoom out again. And let's add some more muscles. So we can see how the pelvic floor muscles, while they're not actually all listed in this app, you can get an idea of how the pelvic bowl, the pelvic floor muscles hold all of these main organs. And so again, if there's agitation, like lifelong constipation or irritable bowel, lifelong painful periods, a history of chronic UTIs, and we can see again, even just locationally, any agitation or inflammation in the rectal area can agitate the vulvar tissues, which can agitate the urethra. And because when the rectum or the vagina or the urethra are feeling agitated, that's going to create a spasm in these muscles and ligaments that wrap around the clitoral region, which can create clitoral sensitivity as well as a sense of arousal when it's unwanted and not created or intentional for you, by you, with you. And so we just, again, want to remember that it's all connected here. And because there's something called crosstalk in the nerves, which is if the nerves are connected, they all talk to each other. And again, this app doesn't show all of the pelvic nerves, but here we can see, as we zoom out, how these nerves infiltrate through all those muscles. So when the hip muscles are going into spasm and the pelvic floor muscles are going into spasm, that can sensitize the pudendal nerve and a few other nerves. So the pudendal nerve comes out through the sitting bones and spreads from the clitoris all the way down to the rectum. For males, it's going to be the same tissue, just in a different shape. So for males, you can have around the rectum, the perineum area, the scrotum, and the penis. Any number of these areas can become sensitized depending on which branches of the pudendal nerve become sensitized. The sensitivity can start with the organs and spread down. Sensitivity can start from agitation or injury on the surface and spread up. And the agitation can start within the nervous system itself. So the vagus nerve, which controls the whole autonomic nervous system, when we're revved up and in fight or flight mode, any of these nerves, including the SI nerve, can become agitated because all of these nerves are going through these muscles. And so if the nerve is in spasm, if the muscle is in spasm, that's going to make the nerve fire. If the nerves are firing based on an organic trigger, a trigger from an organ, or if the nerves are firing because we're in fight or flight mode, we're feeling anxious, we're feeling worried, we're feeling stressed. When we're feeling worried, stressed, and anxious, all of the nerves in the system become more sensitive and the GI system becomes more agitated. So stress can lead to a GI system upset, which leads to these muscles spasming. And remember, these nerves go through muscles and in between muscles. So when these two muscles are in spasm, that puts pressure on the SI nerve. When the pelvic floor muscles are in spasm, that's going to put pressure on the pudendal nerve. And take a look at this. Up near T12, L1, right where we would curve with poor posture, right where we twist when we're playing golf or playing various sports. That is going to agitate a nerve that you can see comes around and down. Let me see if I can highlight that for you. So the iliohypogastric nerve is one of them. The ilioinguinal nerve is the other. And there are also some nerves, like the genitofemoral branch, that as you can see, that one travels right by the psoas. So if the psoas is in spasm, that's going to cause this nerve to go into spasm. If the mid-back is in spasm, it's going to cause the ilioinguinal nerves to go into spasm. And look at that location. So these nerves come out, and again, through crosstalk, it can agitate the bladder. You're going to feel it go into the groin, right above the pubic bone, right into the groin here. And that can go right down the shaft of the penis or on the sides of the vulva. So again, it's all connected. And so what mindfulness invites us to do is to zoom out. We want to remember all these nerves that not only wrap around, but the nerves that come up from the sitting bones as well. And there's a lot of crossover here that this app doesn't show clearly, all of them. But know that there's a lot of overlap. So as these come down here, the pudendal nerve comes up here. And it's this overlap that reminds us we want to zoom out and say, okay, this is why posture is important. This is why releasing and relaxing the back muscles, the hip muscles, and the pelvic floor muscles are all very useful in calming down the muscle spasms and the nerves that are firing in that area. This is also why we want to pay attention to GI health as we heal the GI system and calm down the inflammation. We're going to calm down the inflammation of the bladder. As we calm the brain, we calm the GI system. As we heal the brain, as we heal the GI system, we also heal the brain. Through the vagus nerve, cytokines and other inflammatory chemicals are exchanged, which is why inflammation in the GI system creates inflammation in the brain, and vice versa. And when any of those organs are in spasm or agitated or inflamed, that can cause inflammation to any of the genital organs here. There is a strong correlation between the bladder feeling agitated and that nerve sensitivity that's right at the vaginal opening that we call vaginismus, or that we call vestibulitis. Vestibulitis is pain right around the vaginal opening, usually at 6 o'clock. That has to do with the nerves that surround the bladder and the lower colon, and also has to do with this transverse perineal muscle that can go into a tight spasm, as well as this one. So we want to think about relaxing this whole pelvic floor. And once again, remembering that it's all connected. And so as we zoom out and we relax the leg muscles and the back muscles, and as we strengthen the posture muscles to allow ourselves to stand up straight, that's going to help the pelvic floor relax. We want the back, the upper back, and the legs to be doing most of the work of stabilizing the torso on the pelvis. And so as you begin to increase in activity, such as returning to walking, swimming, golfing, whatever sport you enjoy playing, remember that we want to stretch out these leg muscles and open up the front of the spine. And all of that will help the pelvic floor relax. It's all connected. So hopefully this review helped you connect the dots a little bit of your experience, knowing that it's all one nervous system. It's all one immune system. And so as we calm the nervous system, we calm all of the nerves. As we calm the nervous system, we also help the muscles relax. As we heal the GI system, we decrease the spasms within the abdominal cavity and the pelvic floor. As we heal the GI system, we also heal the brain. And as we heal the brain, everything begins to feel better. It's all connected. It's a magnificent body, isn't it?